Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast, I'm Sam Sachs, the newsman. Today is not only Friday, it's also International Day of Glaciers. So let's give it up for those big icy boys. Please don't drown us. A new court filing argues that Trump's deportation agents condemned an innocent man to a torture prison in El Salvador because they mistook a soccer tattoo for a gang symbol. Jersey Reyes Barrios was a professional soccer, or as the rest of the world calls it, football player in Venezuela. He played goalie, but last year he fled the country seeking asylum. He arrived in the U.S. in September legally. He went through the Customs and Border Protection app, scheduled an appointment, and then showed up at the border for it and made his case for asylum. His final hearing on whether to grant it was scheduled for April. And while waiting in the U.S., he coached youth soccer. That was until earlier this month, when he was swept up by ICE and thrown in a detention center accused of being a member of Tren de Aragua. He was then deported with hundreds of others to El Salvador and imprisoned in the infamous Terrorism Confinement Center, a place known for torture and human rights abuses. According to the affidavit, though, the government's case against him is practically non-existent. It reads, quote, "The accusation is based on two things. First, he has a tattoo on his arm of a crown sitting atop a soccer ball with a rosary and the word Dios. DHS alleges that this tattoo is proof of gang membership. In reality, he chose this tattoo because it is similar to the logo for his favorite soccer team, Real Madrid." The affidavit then shows a picture of the Real Madrid logo and how closely it resembles the tattoo. It then adds, quote, "Second, DHS reviewed his social media posts and found a photo of Mr. Reyes Barrios making a hand gesture that they allege is proof of gang membership. In fact, the gesture is a common one that means I love you in sign language and is commonly used as a rock and roll symbol." Yeah, this was the sign he was using, which could be indicative of a gang if you consider the band Kiss a gang. Barrios' lawyers presented all of this evidence to DHS, including a declaration from the artist who made that tattoo that it was not gang-related, as well as records from Venezuela proving Barrios had no criminal record. He was deported anyway, though. His legal team wasn't notified, and his family only found out because they saw him in a propaganda video shared by the White House depicting the deportations. Despite all this evidence that DHS got it wrong, the government is sticking to its determination. Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, claimed on Twitter, quote, "Jersey Reyes Barrios was not only in the United States illegally, wrong, but he has tattoos that are consistent with those indicating Tren de Aragua gang membership, also wrong. His own social media indicates he is a member of the vicious TDA gang, wrong. That all said, DHS intelligence assessments go beyond a single tattoo, and we are confident in our findings." Okay, then, do you care to share any of those findings, Trish? Or are we just supposed to trust you? Because it sure looks a lot like you just took an innocent dude seeking asylum and threw him indefinitely in a foreign prison. And it raises the question, how many other people on those planes to El Salvador weren't gang members at all? The government still hasn't released the identities of those who were on board, but CBS News did obtain an internal list and published the names of all 238 people who were disappeared to El Salvador. For many, it will be the first time their families get confirmation on their whereabouts. The right is now openly talking about executing Tesla vandals. Check out this clip of Fox News anchor Harris Faulkner and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
there's someone in one of these cars, they blow up. That can happen. That becomes murder, or worse, terrorism plus. And I know that on January 20th, the president signed into law, through an executive order, restoring the death penalty. Do you think this sort of thing, and I hate to think it, people leave their children and pets in cars. I mean, you don't know. This is deadly, dangerous stuff these liberal protesters are playing with.
Yes, it is, Harris. And what I can tell you is that President Trump condemns this violence, and he is determined to restore law and order in our country, and he will ensure that the harshest penalties are pursued for those who are engaging in this vicious violence that we have seen targeted at this American company.
The harshest penalties, huh? Trump wants to execute cop killers, drug dealers, and now guys that might have pissed on a Tesla. The reason why the right is freaking out so much about this is because the vandalism is working. If the point is to discourage people from driving Teslas, it's working. Well, a combination of that and Elon Musk just being a weird Nazi and ruining his own brand. According to an analysis from CNN, the Tesla resale market is in big trouble. On Cars.com, searches for used Teslas dropped 16% last month. And over the last year, demand for used non-Tesla electric cars increased 28%. Because people are realizing you can buy other electric vehicles that, while manufactured by some real shitbags, at least aren't made by Elon Musk, and at least people won't spit on your car. On Car Gurus, the car buying site, used Tesla prices are falling at more than double the rate of the average used car price, and the Cybertruck's resale value is 58% less than its original price. It's going to probably drop further after the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration issued a recall on all Cybertrucks because a part of the vehicle's side panel can just fly off while driving, posing a threat to the public. It was reportedly just glued on, and the glue wasn't weatherproof. Owners are being asked to return their trucks to a Tesla service center to get it fixed free of charge. 46,000 vehicles are affected, and this is now the 8th recall for the Cybertruck. It's yet another pain in the ass for owners and a reason why people don't want to drive the damn things anymore. Also, insurance on Teslas is already higher than most luxury cars and are likely to increase further as more of them get set on fire. It's like buying property in a flood zone now. It's just not a financially wise investment. There's only so much conservatives can do to keep the demand up. It's not like a book where conservative groups just buy thousands of copies to artificially inflate the sales. Sure, a lot of chuds may buy one to own the libs, but it won't take long before they realize they're just owning themselves driving a crummy car. But the White House is still trying to get people to do it. Here was Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
If you want to learn something on this show tonight, buy Tesla. It's unbelievable that this guy's stock is this cheap. It'll never be this cheap again. When people understand the things he's building, the robots he's building, the technology he's building, people are going to be dreaming of today and Jesse Waters and thinking, gosh, I should have bought Elon Musk's stock. I mean, who wouldn't invest in Elon Musk?
The wallet inspectors are running the White House. As the Tesla crisis deepens, President Trump is bringing Musk in closer. According to the New York Times, Musk is set to be briefed at the Pentagon on the U.S.'s war plans against China. Though this is more than likely just another attempt by the administration to boost Musk's failing company. At the National Labor Relations Board, it's the General Counsel who plays a critical role interpreting labor law and setting policy. Under former President Biden, that was Jennifer Abruzzo, who took a pretty aggressive posture against union busters. For example, in the board's CMEX decision, Abruzzo took the position that the NLRB can force a company to recognize and bargain with a union if it committed labor law violations in the run-up to the union election. Abruzzo also determined that captive audience meetings are illegal and that workers are entitled to broader compensation when their labor rights are violated. But Abruzzo was removed from her post when Trump came to power, and now there's reporting on who he's picked to replace her. And it's not good news for workers. The American Prospect reported that Trump is set to pick Crystal Carey for the job of NLRB General Counsel. Since 2018, Carey has worked at notorious union-busting law firm Morgan Lewis, which has been one of the leading forces against pro-worker reforms for decades. And Morgan Lewis's top client is Amazon, a company with a history of union busting and with a lot of business pending before the NLRB. The Prospect wrote of the Carey pick, quote, "The selection would confirm that any talk of the second term of President Trump being in any way pro-labor was largely lip service or sheer fantasy. Hiring an attorney of a go-to union-busting law firm to administer labor law in the U.S. makes Trump's position crystal clear." Carey will be taking the job just as the labor market is weakening. Workers have less power to leverage their qualifications to find new jobs for higher wages, which is a reversal from a few years ago when workers were able to take advantage of a strong labor market and take some risks to improve their livelihoods. New economic data shows that wage gains have slowed, particularly for people who quit their jobs to find a new, presumably better one. The Wall Street Journal reported that in January and February, people who kept their job saw a 4.6% wage increase on average. People who quit for a new job saw only a 4.8% rise, which is a considerable narrowing since 2023, when people who stayed got a 5.5% bump compared to people who quit, who saw a 7.7% increase. As a result, fewer people are quitting their job for more upwardly mobile positions. This is the lowest quit rate since before the pandemic. Federal Reserve's campaign to jack up interest rates to weaken labor power unfortunately worked, all while corporations were left free to trigger an inflation crisis with excessive profit seeking. So this is example number 7,384, that the technocrats who steward the U.S. economy really serve only one purpose: to assist capital. On the bright side, there are new opportunities, though, for workers who struggle to make ends meet on their current wages. They can now make installment payments for burritos on food delivery apps. I'm serious. Okay, folks, time to get down to business. Thanks for all the nominations over on Blue Sky and on YouTube and on the Means TV message board. Got a lot of people putting forward Chuck Schumer's name for this week's dishonors. Comes after he led Democrats to capitulate to Republicans on the spending bill last week. He's received pushback and criticism from across his party for the cave, and instead of considering if maybe he made the wrong decision, he's dismissed it all, believing that actually, no, everyone else is wrong and that he's the one who's right. No, Chuck, you just need to resign. Also nominated, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's recently taked his popularity by starting a podcast where he chums it up with reactionaries like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon. Yeah, you just can't trust that guy. He's too slick looking. Here's a nomination for Stu Sternberg, the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays, who's being pressured to sell the team after backing out of an agreed-upon deal in which the Rays would cover the costs of fixing their stadium, which was damaged by Hurricane Milton. Sternberg is screwing around and trying to get the local government to foot the bill instead, even though he's worth like nearly $1 billion. Real dick move. Joe Rogan received a nomination this week as well, or as the Wolf called him, the billionaire simp. And finally, of course, Elon Musk is nominated. It's believed he should receive the dishonors until, quote, someone does something incredibly based and funny. Hey, I hear ya. We're all hoping for it. Let's Strong nominations all around, but instead, we're going to go with someone new who's received less attention but has been engaged in some truly bizarre behavior, even for a member of the ruling class. This week's Rich Dick is Robert Ehrlich. Ehrlich is the founder of the snack food company Pirate's Booty. And this week, he attempted to stage a coup in a small village on Long Island. In fact, he's still attempting it. Ehrlich mounted a write-in campaign to be the next mayor of the small town of Seacliff. The election was held on Tuesday, and he got blown out. Incumbent mayor Elena Villafane received 1,064 votes. Ehrlich got a whopping 62 votes. But that hasn't ended his obnoxious quest for small-town power. It actually all started a week before the election, when Ehrlich marched into Village Hall and proclaimed himself mayor. The village released a statement describing how it all went down. Quote, "Upon arrival, Ehrlich presented a statement falsely asserting his authority as mayor, demanding access to office space, and declaring that the entire village staff was fired effective immediately, but could reapply for their jobs. When informed that this claim was invalid and unsupported by law, he was asked to leave Village Hall, at which point Mr. Ehrlich and his associates became increasingly confrontational. Ehrlich is reportedly relying on a New York state law passed in 2009 that allows residents to dissolve or reformulate their town. The first step in that process, though, requires collecting the signatures of 10% of the town's voters, which Ehrlich did not do. When his hostile takeover failed, he proclaimed he was entering the race for mayor, which he then got destroyed in. Ehrlich now claims he's a victim of election fraud. This is from NBC News. Quote, "He said poll workers weren't properly checking rolls, and he'd supposedly know, claiming his own supporters made repeated visits to the voting booth. Quote, so one of my supporters voted 3 times, another one voted 4 times, and they didn't even realize that he was coming in that many times." Okay, so you were the one committing voter fraud. I'm not sure Ehrlich should be admitting that. Also, if you had your supporters voting multiple times and you still only got 62 votes, that's just sad, really. Ehrlich then asserted that actually he received 1,900 votes, not on election day, mind you, but over the last 4 years, he said he's been collecting votes at the coffee shop he owns in town. And he cited the 13th century election of Pope Gregory X as precedent. Quote, "The longest election in history was from 1268 to 1271 when they couldn't find a pope. So actually, I have the longest election in history," Ehrlich said. He later made this strange analogy in a text message to the New York Post, writing, quote, "To see the entire village of Seacliff turn into Anne Frank in the election was the SS looking at the books." What? Ehrlich, who refers to himself as Captain Bootyhead, is still not conceding the race and continues to claim that he's the mayor, and he's trying to get a meeting with New York Governor Kathy Hochul to, quote, enforce his claim. In the meantime, he's calling for a village-wide tax strike to protest. The New York Times reported on what exactly motivated Ehrlich's campaign, and it's about what you'd expect. Quote, "He promised to lower taxes and cut regulations on local businesses. His greatest wrath seemed to be aimed at a restriction on outdoor dining and at the officials who created it. Mr. Ehrlich, it should be noted, owns a cafe in town." So, typical rich people bullshit. Got it. Times also reported that Ehrlich has a history of antagonizing the village. In 2004, he was ordered to pay around $900,000 to cover the town's legal bills amid a zoning dispute after he erroneously sued, claiming he was discriminated against for being Jewish. No, it's actually just because you're an asshole. Now, typically, a guy calling himself Captain Bootyhead, alleging a vast conspiracy and proclaiming that he's now the mayor, would elicit some concern. We'd say, oh, he's having a mental health crisis. Hope he gets the help he needs. But that's not the case here. Ehrlich isn't mentally ill. That's just what rich dicks do when they're stressed. All right, friends, the show ends today with a sunrise from California. It was sent in by Noor in West Los Angeles. Enjoy. Thank you, Noor. Show's over. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please sign up for Means TV, subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels, and follow us on social media. One day capitalism will fall. Until then, we'll be right here. See you next week.